Gets a little tricky when you come to the neck. So when you're working on the neck, the problem is that you have to work in from this side and in from this side. Now it could be you might be able to do that with a gouge, but I kind of like doing this whole job with just using the knife. So I'll just kind of work my way in like that, and then when I get to the top again, making sure to go with the grain, I can go ahead and do my rounding then at the top of the head to the center line. Same thing along the back. Take off the big hunks when you can take off the big hunks. Take off little tiny hunks when there's any danger of breaking the wood. Just be very, very careful. Take the tiniest little cuts, little shaving cuts, little tiny shavings, until you get right up to where that dowel is. Now, I stay about 1 millimeter away from the dowel. That's because I can sand away that last little bit of wood very, very easily. So after digging a little bit out of my groove, extending the sides just a little bit, I had sanded the ends of my tail feathers really, really thin, and I managed to get it as good as this. And this is actually good enough for at this point in time. If you've got your tail feathers so that they all fit in and they stay without you fiddling with them, that's good enough. Don't worry too much that they're not maybe exactly perfect, because after we put the glue in, there will be actually time enough to fiddle with working on the exact lengths and such. But this is pretty good just the way it is. Now, of course, we're not going to glue it in now because we have to do the wood burning. And you want to pretty much fill in the whole area, but with the discrete feathers. Especially, you'll see as we paint, we pretty much paint each feather, so you don't just want a mishmash of lines. If you just have a mishmash of lines, you won't know where to go with your paint. So try and keep the feathers individual. You know, this is a feather here. This is a feather here. Okay? As you go along towards the back, your feathers are going to get a little bit larger. You put a little bit of a line to indicate that that's where the feather is. Then run your feathery parts back in that same direction. It's always fan-shaped with the start at the beginning. I've got my epoxy, which I've mixed to a nice even consistency. It's not does not have any more streaks in it where the two different components were. It's all exactly one color. So I've filled in the hole, the eye hole. I'm going to pick up one of the eyes, which I can do because my fingers are sticky from the epoxy. I'm going to put it in place, press it in with my thumb. When I do that, a little bit of extra epoxy is going to come around the edge, and that's okay. I can just wipe that off with my high-tech toothpick. I'll look at my eye and see if it's sticking out just as much as I want it. It should be enough so that you can feel it, but we don't want it sticking out too much. And if you want to get really fancy, then you can generate kind of an eye ring. The eye ring goes around the eye, and it's kind of like the edges of the eyelid. And if you just indent the extra epoxy around the eye, it will end up looking quite a bit like the eye ring. Where I've got the white on the head, I want a little bit of green to go underneath the eye. I want it to go between the white and the red. Notice the painterly strokes I'm using, not painting the side of the barn. I come under the wing. Again, a little bit of the overlap on everything. Always overlap all the time. Underneath the chin area, I'm going to put a little bit of green in there, overlapping the red. I'm not going to overlap the black. That's the one exception, is don't overlap the black. So use thin paint. Paint it thinly. You can paint right over the eye because it's going to just wipe right off. That's not a that's not really a problem. Okay, so here I've almost completed the side of the head.